get some good footage, we can go out and take a look at some of the helicopters.
We will.
Yeah.
It's on.
Oh, okay. What does a trainer do?
What a trainer does is it teaches people how to fly helicopters. There's two sets of controls in the helicopter, and we have the student sitting in the pilot seat with their set of controls, and then the instructor sitting in the instructor seat with their set of controls. And basically, we verbalize the maneuvers, demonstrate the maneuvers, and then allow the student to execute the maneuvers while on the controls with them. And then once they have the maneuver all figured out, then they do it themselves. And if we need to get on the controls with them to either help them or save the helicopter from a dangerous situation, we'll do that.
Okay. Are there different types of trainers?
Yeah, there's a CFI and there's a CFII. The double I stands for instrument instructor, and what that person does is teaches them how to fly basically blindfolded. They have a little hood on, and they fly strictly via the flight instruments. The only thing that they can see is the instrument panel on the helicopter.
Okay. What equipment do you use to get the best results?
As far as the equipment in the helicopter, there's different gauges that are required to be installed, like a compass, altimeter, manifold pressure gauge, airspeed indicator, fuel gauge, oil pressure, and tachometer. Those are required. And then there's other gauges such as like a turn slip coordinator or a GPS. We use a lot of GPSs nowadays with the technology that's out there, so that's also very helpful.
Do you give pilots a physical test?
Pilots are required to have what's called a medical certificate before they start their training. So they have to go to a doctor who's called an AME, which means Air Medical Examiner, and the doctor does a physical examination and determines if they're fit to be pilots.
Okay. What is the difference between IFR and VFR training?
Sure. VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. IFR stands for Instrument Flight Rules. And basically the weather minimums is what determines whether it's VFR or IFR. In order for it to be VFR, it's got to be 3 miles visibility, the ceilings greater than 1,000 feet, and you have to remain a certain distance from clouds, 1,000 above, 500 below, and 2,000 feet laterally. It's IFR if those minimums are below the 3 miles visibility and 1,000 feet, then it's considered IFR, and you have to have an instrument ready to fly in those conditions.
Is vertigo a problem?
Vertigo can be a problem, yeah. That's definitely a medical flight condition that we're aware of.
And also, what is vertigo?
Vertigo is a type of spatial disorientation.
Okay. Do pilots take a test on a simulator or on an aircraft?
It's in the aircraft. The test that the pilots take, they have to pass a written exam first, and then on their practical, they need to pass an oral exam, which is generally a few hours long, and then they need to pass a practical exam, and that's usually about an hour to 2 hours where they take you up in the helicopter with an examiner and take you through all the procedures, emergency procedures, all the maneuvers, make sure that you can demonstrate your ability to execute those maneuvers.
How long is the training, like days, weeks, months?
It all depends on the student. If the student's a quick learner and they're doing it every day, or maybe the student's not such a quick learner and they're not doing it every day, and it'll take them longer to do it. It all depends on the student's aptitude. We can't progress a student just because they've been in it for a finite amount of time. If they're not ready, they're not ready. So it's basically when the student is ready.
Okay. What do they have to know or be able to do before they come to you?
Before they come to us, nothing. I mean, they just have to have the interest in aviation. They have to be able to pay for the license of the course and everything like that. What they need to be able to do, we will teach them.
What do they get when they graduate?
When they graduate, when they pass their check ride, they'll get a little certificate from the FAA. I can show you mine, and it just says their pilot qualification and their rating, whether it's fixed wing, rotorcraft. Let me show you mine here. Let's see. Okay, so that's my rating right there, and it says flight instructor, CFI. And this one is my commercial. Yep, put them right here. There we go. So that's what they get.
Okay. Now for the pilot. Is the training hard to become a pilot?
Yeah. The short answer, yes, it is hard.
Is the testing hard, or is all the tests?
The test is hard. The writtens are hard. The oral exam is hard, and yeah, the practical exam is hard. You know, you're going to have to know. That's the point in time where you're going to have to know and be able to do everything.
Is it all the same test for every student, or is it a different test?
It's the same written test for everybody. And as far as the oral and the practical exam, it can vary. There's something called practical test standards that they have to test you on. An examiner might choose to dive into a certain area with a student that maybe he feels was weak on a certain area, or another person might be strong, and they'll just kind of do a little bit of it and pass them on that. So it all depends on the student what their strengths and weaknesses are, is what the check ride is going to consist of.
Okay. Do you have to come to the training with tools or equipment?
Yes, I mean there's books. When we're doing ground school, that we'll review. Also, when we're doing flight planning, there's maps and charts, and then we've also got our little. It's called an E6B. I can show you that one a little bit later. I've got one down in my office, and a flight computer.
How long? I already asked that. How long before you are certified for becoming a good pilot?
Become a good pilot? Well, that's up for debate. Generally speaking, it takes people about 60 hours in helicopters before they're able to get their private pilot's license. And then the requirements just kind of go up from there, about 150 for a commercial license, 200 hours for an instructor license.
Is it dangerous in any way?
Oh yeah, it can be. It all depends on the pilot and the conditions and the aircraft. There's a lot of different factors that kind of determine how dangerous it is. And in fact, I can kind of show you something that we use here to kind of calculate how dangerous a flight would be. Let me just show you one line here. Okay. We have something called the risk matrix, and you can see here it's got different categories like pilot experience, hours and type of aircraft, time on duty, weather, airport landing, cross country, the terrain, flight instruction, film, external load, and each one of these has a value of, for the pilot experience. All right, if the pilot's only got 200 to 500 hours, that's going to be a 5. All right, and then hours and type of aircraft, if you have, say you have 175, that's going to be a 2. Time on duty, I just got here, so I'll put a 1. The weather, what the weather is outside, it's day greater than 1,000 feet, 3 miles. That's that VFR thing I was telling you about. So anyway, we kind of go through this, all right, and then terrain, whether we're flying over populated cities, over water, over mountains, there's a value for that. The type of instruction we're doing, whether it's pre-solo, private, commercial, CFI, or instrument, that's got a risk value. And then also meteorological factors like the wind, density, altitude. And then down here at the bottom, it totals them all up, and it gives you like a risk assessment. Like this one,